Hey there guys, welcome to the Agent Economy, episode 3. We are rocking and rolling, releasing these on a weekly basis. I hope you're enjoying them. Today's episode, we're going to be focusing on Chat GPT Ads. So lots of developments in this space. Obviously Chat GPT releasing their ad product, going into general availability very soon. So we've got lots of detail to share with you on this, which lots of people have eyes on this. It's an exciting area. Shout out before we get into the content to Claude Design. If you guys haven't used it, released over the weekend, it is awesome and plugs directly into your Claude usage. So yeah, the slides you see completely designed by it. Lots of cool content which has come from Claude itself as well. So I don't know if you've used it, Stephen, Claude Design yet, but
Not yet. I did try and set it up yesterday. I haven't managed to run anything through it yet, but I did see a few people on social media saying "rip Figma." So I'm not sure, not sure what that means, but probably lots of people using Claude for more things than they were before.
I feel like I fanboy Claude quite a lot. I might end up with a Claude tattoo at some point. But if the Anthropic guys want to sponsor the pod, do get in contact. Let us know.
It may be more likely you get an implant.
Yeah, true. Maybe. Awesome. Getting into it. So wanted to give you guys a bit of history behind where we're at, where it's come from. The pilot launched pretty quietly in the US at the beginning of February. And actually the ads themselves were only showed into logged in adults across the US, restricted to certain tiers of ChatGPT. And actually, if you're paying for ChatGPT, the ads themselves won't be shown. The launch we saw was around $2K monthly spend commitments. CPM's very high at around $60. So the entry point was really for that enterprise tier. Now we're starting to see the developments which we'll come onto, that actually the barriers of entry are starting to fall. So an initial launch, really testing the water, dipping their toes into advertising, but we're really starting now to see the fruits of the labor, and actually it's going to be a big revenue driver for ChatGPT going forward. I don't know if you've heard any more on how the initial pilots went, Stephen, or
The only thing, I think I mentioned this last time, I heard that obviously they're building out the ad infrastructure at the moment, right? So the capability to put the ads into the chats, but also like how to actually manage the flow of ad information to ChatGPT from the advertisers. And of course, advertisers want to know how the ads performed. And I heard that the way that information was being conveyed back to them was on CSV spreadsheets, which I thought was really amusing. So taking it way back before things like Ads Manager and those platforms are available. Let's not forget they're doing this at lightning speed, right? So they're just trying to, or my interpretation of this is they're trying to tip up the pilot, prove out it worked, and then quickly move to building out the tech stack so that it makes it super easy for advertisers to engage with them. And I think that's the kind of things that we're going to start to see over the next week or two.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, they're obviously running a huge deficit, just gone on a crazy funding round, IPO impending, which will be later this year, I'm sure. So they need some revenue, need some cash in the bank.
And I think you mentioned already about the ads, who sees them and who doesn't. I actually am yet to see an ad in the wild, if that makes sense, because I'm obviously based in the UK and on a paid tier, then I've not seen them yet. So I'll be really excited to see that first ad. So I'll probably have to log out of the paid platform and have a free tier so I can go and see that happen. And then the other thing actually just reminded me about is, we're talking about ads here, but in general, the OpenAI ecosystem, they made that acquisition of Johnny Ive's business, the guy who's the designer behind the Apple iPhone, didn't they, at the end of last year? And still waiting to see what product gets launched. And I looked on Polymarket the other day, the betting platform, and I think based on the odds on there, the most likely product that they launch is some headphones with ChatGPT integrated. And then the one after that, the device after that, was a wearable, like a keychain, that comes down and you wear it on your body and it maybe records your voice and can take photos as well. But I think that'd be really interesting to see how that device rolls out and whether even ads get integrated into that or not. Who knows?
It'd be interesting. I know there's a lot of talk about the phone being replaced or at least supplemented, but I just can't see me using something which is better than an iPhone.
I know, but a couple of things that have changed for me just in the last couple of months. So doing a lot more voice to text now into Claude. So actually using Whisperflow, which is a really great piece of tech that just makes it kind of seamless across all the different platforms, just puts the text in wherever the cursor is and does a great job actually of like cutting out all of the fluff words that have been put in or that you might put in, so that it makes it really sort of usable output.
Much like my editing in Riverside.
Exactly, yeah, it does the same thing. So like cleans up all the text that goes into the chat. I do quite a bit on the iPhone now, where if I just got a real quick question, I hold the side button and query it, and then it comes up with a text response on Chat GPT. And then the bit I was always trying to get my head around with, especially with shopping things, is people want to see something on a screen, or at least I think they want to see something on a screen rather than just do it all on audio. And right at the very beginning of the pod, I actually muted my Alexa because I knew I was going to say that word and I didn't want it to trigger. But I've actually got my Alexa device now with a screen in front of me on the desk because I've upgraded to Alexa Plus, and it is really good. It's great quality conversation you can have with Alexa, and it will bring stuff up on the screen. So I can actually imagine a world where there's devices around us that we're talking to other than our phones, which have screens as well, and then that brings up content on the screens, and then you start to engage with it. So I struggle to think about one device that might completely replace the phone. I think we might end up with multiple devices and touch points where we engage, but it's the same maybe AI that sits in the background that has the conversation with us.
Yeah, you're right. Voice has been a bit of a game changer. Really, like, if you think how much speed you get from just dictating to AI, it's much faster. I don't see how it plays out in terms of like a wearable. Maybe the Google Glass comes back. You're starting to see that across Meta and Snap.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, they were just way early on that, I think, weren't they?
Yeah.
On Google, like, too early almost for that to be adopted. But yeah, I can see that coming back in a bit stronger. So I think we'll see like a whole plethora of different AI-enabled wearables, things like watches, glasses, necklaces, other devices that I probably can't think of right now, and we'll maybe engage with them in different ways. We'll see. But hopefully ads won't infiltrate all of those places. There'll be some places that we don't get ads. Presumably, if we pay for it, then we won't get ads.
Yeah, hope. Well, one would hope. One would hope. Nice. So obviously the pilot began in the US, large core market for ChatGPT. Interestingly, it's now expanded to Canada, Australia, New Zealand, so expanding internationally. I'm keen to understand why geographically they've gone for those regions. I imagine entry into Europe comes with some difficulties, which is why they're being a little bit more hesitant. But yeah, they're slowly but surely expanding their coverage across some of the other core markets or smaller markets for them. And then Europe will come at some point, I'm sure, this year.
For sure. And so you think maybe like regulatory challenges may be the reason rather than just the language? Because at the moment it's all on CPM, so language shouldn't be an issue. But I guess if it comes to a point where there's some like CPC type ads which are targeted on, I don't want to say keywords, but like query strings, then maybe there's some language piece to solve for. But yeah, maybe it's just on the regulatory side.
I think for any, and I've done this before, taking US businesses into Europe, there's always complexities.
Yeah.
Especially the nature of the market here in EMEA. So yeah, whether it's regulatory or just a bit of a headache that they need to kind of flesh out the product offering in a bit more detail. I think we're also here in the UK, we're an advanced market in terms of what marketers need, right? We're not the US market. They're just kind of happy to turn the taps on and just see what happens. Over here, there's a lot more scrutiny around measurement, return on investment. So I think that's probably part of it as well.
Well, I guess 200 grand is what you get paid to be a manager at Chipotle in the US. So it's, not too much money for them to drop. Whereas in the UK, it's significant.
Someone's whole budget for the year.
Yeah. All nice. Good. Cool. So next up, you're going to talk about pricing, huh?
Yeah. So we can obviously talk about the initial entry point was $60 CPM, and obviously the entry point in terms of that monthly minimum commitment was 200K or 250. That has been reduced now, so we're starting to see enterprise grade at the beginning, but for OpenAI, they really need mass markets. There's talk around the CPMs reducing after a period of 9 weeks, and actually that monthly minimum commitment dropping down to 50K, making it more accessible for mid-tier SMBs potentially going forward. That entry point has gone. It's going to be super interesting to see how this develops. I think part of this is the entry point is reduced through some of the ad tech partnerships that they've made in the space, right? So you hear a lot about developments with Trade Desk partnership, Criteo being one of the primaries at the start. And I think as ad tech comes into play, there's going to be a need to kind of reduce those hurdles. Super interesting. Kind of foresaw this coming, right? Like the entry point was very high. They're going to need to adjust based on new markets as well. So
Yeah,
expect this to
absolutely.
have wider
And kind of
adoption.
mirrors what I've heard as well, directly speaking to Quitio about the opportunities that exist and the minimum spend that's required. So I think we'll just start to see that number just come down lower and lower. And then I think one thing that'll be really interesting to see how it evolves. So here we're talking obviously about display ads, CPMs, so cost per impressions, and it'll be interesting to see. Well, I read that I think on a LinkedIn post that there were already some tech adjustments on their side to make CPC type ads available. So cost per click, but more lower funnel type ads, the same as the Google PPC ones that you see where you pay for the clicks rather than the impressions. So it'd be interesting to see how that comes together and what the pricing for that looks like. Typically those are auction led as well, and so actually the auction will be really what decides what the price is for those clicks. If they're really good ads and they're highly relevant, then and they convert really well for the people who are placing the ads, then those clicks probably become quite expensive. But I think one really interesting thing, Chris, is outside of the OpenAI ecosystem, we've got the Google ecosystem, which is becoming a lot more automated. I know on Meta's side, they're trying to automate a lot more as well for brand partners. So if you're a small SMB and you want to run adverts on Meta, it was quite complicated in the past to do that in terms of ad creative, ad testing, ad setup. They're just trying to simplify that process as much as possible using AI to do it all for you. And I think in doing so, they might get rid of some of the barriers to entry for some brands where they would have said, well, it's not worth our investment in Meta ads because we've got to pay an agency to do it for us, and that's going to cost us a whole bunch of money. Now, if you don't need an agency to do it because you can get the AI system to do it for you, then it might open up a whole new layer of ads. Plus, the retainers that have been paid to agencies actually can get reinvested in ads, if you don't need them because the AI is doing it. Now, it all depends on the performance, but I think the interesting thing will be, does OpenAI and the Chat GPT ad ecosystem basically just leapfrog that straight to the point where actually, you just prompt in Chat GPT Ads Manager, hey, I want to run ads for my brand to this audience, and then it does the whole thing for you. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's where they're trying to get it to.
Yeah, for sure. I think I completely agree. The advertising industry, right, is overly complex. There's so many middlemen, women. For these guys, they have the consumer directly in platform, all the way from like first point of contact all the way through to conversion. So the data is there. I don't think ChatGPT ads are going to be difficult to run, right? Because it's contextually relevant based on the prompt answer. And there's not going to be the kind of middlemen, right? There's not going to be a lot of like measurement tools, a lot of ad tech providers, a lot of third-party data sets. So it's a clean ecosystem, which it's going to be self-service, right? And they've already launched it, right? So the self-service platform is out. I think their aim is to cut out a lot of the fluff, the noise, the wasted media spends, and really go direct to consumer or direct to client. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I think interesting if they do like strip out, let's say, a layer of complexity and a layer of cost, then obviously that means that the efficiency of using their platform is higher. And then if the efficiency is higher, then you should see quite a lot of ad dollars you're switching, and then it'll become a really competitive race, I guess, across Meta, Google, and OpenAI for those ad dollars. So let's see.
What do you reckon? Stripe payment and a prompt, and away you go.
I honestly, yeah. And then the question I've got is, and maybe this is where it gets interesting for people like you and me and our businesses, is okay, well, where does a brand already have organic visibility in prompts, and where do they need to pay for that visibility? So like, where are they already the number one recommended brand on an answer? So they don't need to put a paid placement there because they're already ranking, let's say, organically the best position. So it's kind of wasted spend if you also advertise on the same spot or on the same query. A bit like on a branded search on Google, there's always a debate about whether you actually want to run PPC ads there because people are coming to find your website anyway or your brand anyway. There's probably a question about defense against competitors that you might want to consider or factor in. But I always remember this fantastic story actually of early days of eBay and Google. And I don't know if this is true or whether it's a urban myth, but apparently new performance ads director joined eBay and looked at the ad sets that they had. And one of the best performing ads was on the keyword eBay. and it was generating all of the traffic to their website, and they were spending $1 million on it every single year. And apparently the new ads director said, hey, well, we're going to absolutely cut that advert. And there was like panic about cutting it because they thought it was going to massively reduce traffic. And guess what? They turned the ad off and saved $1 million a year, and it made absolutely no impact on traffic. So yeah, this whole like organic visibility versus paid visibility, it gets super interesting, and something I think that brands are going to have to try and unpick, so they don't waste money and waste spend on ads when they're already getting organic visibility.
Yeah, for sure. I think we've got some stuff coming up in the slides as well, like some recommendations right now on what people can do. But yeah, it's important for people to understand the ads are going to be below the fold, right? They're going to be underneath the initial answer. So you can't pay to play, really. You need to make sure you have that initial visibility and presence, and then supplement that with ads. So been 20 years in the making. Basically what we've done is put ads at the bottom. So some serious innovation.
It reminds me of innovation at like big CPGs as well, which is like different pack size. Hey, we did a 12 and now we made a 6, and
killing it. Well done, guys.
Anything more to say on formats?
Yes, some of the formats that were initially announced, and actually I got quite excited by some of the formats, especially some of the formats where you can actually engage with the ad itself using natural language, and ultimately extend what you're doing within ChatGPT but into the ad ecosystem. A couple of formats that we know about, one being the sponsored product card, so triggering when people are asking about food or products or shopping. It's probably the most rife for advertising, really nice and works well in the e-com space. And then format number 2 is memory powered targeting, so actually using some of the preferences that are stored by the user to actually select when the ads will trigger. So you can turn this off directly in platform. But yeah, a couple of formats we know about already. There's going to be more, right, as we go through this and they evolve and go through an evolution of their ad platform. But the first couple seem to have been well received by the market. But I'm more excited about some of the more engaging ad units that are going to be coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that ability of users to update the settings and ad controls is not something unique to OpenAI and ChatGPT, right? You can do it in other platforms, in Meta ecosystems and Google as well. So if for anyone who wants to make sure their free version of ChatGPT displays ads in the right way, then definitely go and have a look at those settings on your system. Cool. We talked a bit about this already, didn't we? The different ways that the ads are going to be bought by advertisers or by brands, and the fact they did the enterprise grade setup to start with. They had that partnership with Criteo, which I'm sure will continue. And then this launch of the self-serve ads manager, where we were talking about the ability of individual users coming in and be able to set ads up real easy, maybe even by just prompting. And then what's coming, this CPC pricing, which I think for me, I actually thought this is where they were going to start. I don't know why, maybe just because I'm so used to running PPC ads on platforms like Amazon. I figured this was the way that the ads would appear, but I was wrong. And they started on the display, but I'm actually pleased to see, or encouraged to see, that the CPC ones are going to come through as well. And I think as an advertiser or a brand, wanting to get your message out there, you actually having access to the full stack, from upper funnel, more awareness driven, impressions based advertising, all the way down to that lower funnel conversion type CPC is really important. And interestingly, on both Google and to a certain extent Meta and the Amazon ecosystem, we saw that expansion just in some different ways. So Google's ecosystem born out of CPC, but moved into the Google display, and they brought the richness of the display ads to those advertisers and the ability to do the upper funnel targeting. I think Meta came about it from a slightly different angle, which is they're already in that consideration of awareness type advertising space, and then tried to go closer to the point of conversion. And then of course on Amazon, they started right down very granular at the point of conversion with the advertising placements that are on their retail platform. And then since the sort of origination of that, they've expanded out, and now you can run ads all across their ecosystem and also across the rest of the ads network as well, covering the full funnel. So seems like, I think OpenAI just want to have that full stack from day one, I guess.
Yeah, they're going full coverage, and this is early days, right? So I'm sure by the end of the year, the pace of innovation and change, it's going to be a completely different beast. But I'm glad to see that in the code base they're starting to introduce new pricing models, which will be applauded by the marketing community.
It will, and then it'll be interesting to see how quickly those get adopted and then how easy it's going to be to run ads on all those placements. Because in theory, as soon as you start doing like the full stack and you're offering all these placements in different ways of purchasing and different placements, it gets more complicated. So it'll be interesting to see how they try and keep that nice and simple.
Yeah, for sure. Just on the self-serve piece, just some recommendations. You can now sign up to get access to it. It goes into a bit of a holding pen, but we'll add it in the description notes of the YouTube vid. It's basically you sign up as a partner to become ChatGPT certified, and then from there, hopefully you get access to it. So you can do that process through OpenAI. Yep.
Yeah, I'll put it in the notes, like you said. So I think last couple of slides, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think this one's good just to show where the guys are at after 2 months. So 100 million annualized revenue, which I actually thought was a good success. It was clear that there was appetite there. They're now projecting out at 2.5 billion for 2026 in terms of that revenue through the advertising product. This is combating obviously the projected losses through to 2029, right? So they're at a crazy run rate in terms of cost. So advertising for these guys is not a nice to have, it's a necessity, and it's a quick win. They've obviously made certain bets in the B2C space which haven't really played out. They're deprioritizing certain products, i.e. Sora. So they've made lots of bets, and this is common with a tech company. You place a lot of bets and then ultimately double down on what's working. It seems, and there's a lot of kind of negativity out there at the moment on ChatGPT, that those bets across the board haven't really played out, which is why they're pulling back, right? But I think from an advertising standpoint, it's B2C focused. It's a very easy win for these guys. So expect them to kind of double down on this and increase investment and outreach. So I think they're going to probably hire aggressively, bring in some sales reps, and try and win some of that Google advertising budget.
Absolutely. And on that point about hiring, I heard anecdotally that it's quite an intense environment to work at OpenAI, and I can imagine some of the quotas they'll be placing on the salespeople will be fairly significant. So even though it might be an easy sell, I think it's going to be pretty hard graft. So I'm definitely going to steer clear of any job openings that get posted.
Right, yeah, I mean, for sure. Unless you get some of the, obviously they're going IPO at end of year. So if you do take a job at OpenAI, make sure you got that equity play.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice. Measurement. So, I mean, we can cover this, but I think the early feedback was it was plug and play. You kind of put some money in, see what happens. The metrics that they're working towards are pretty limited. You're obviously looking at CTRs, impressions. I think this is just a first pass, right? So they want to test the waters, see what's out there, get the feedback. As they're adapting new pricing models, they're going to introduce new measurement frameworks and metrics that people can work towards. This is a Claude run, but it actually picked up Rob Webster. For anyone in the ad tech community is probably very familiar with him, but you can see here some of the quotes. Kind of Google and Meta have owned measurement space for a long time. Post-click is easy, post-view at $60 CPM is hard. Yeah, expect more to come. I don't see this as a major problem going forward. They'll adapt their offering and obviously introduce new measurement capabilities. So yeah, it'll be requested by every single marketer that's investing with them. So it needs to come.
And also the big guys will need some kind of audit process as well to make sure they're actually getting what they're paying for. So we'll see all that ecosystem evolve, I think, won't we? And then I think this is what you referenced slightly earlier in the pod, which was some recommendations for people right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we've covered a bit of this, but obviously it's important for people to understand the ad unit itself will be below the fold. It will be below the initial response. I was pretty bullish on advertising in this space, but as I've transitioned across to Claude, who are obviously anti-advertising, I can't see it working in certain areas, but if you are a ChatGPT user, it does fit really nicely, especially with your kind of usage and obviously looking for certain products and services. It will be below the initial response. Is there going to be pressure for them to actually adapt the ad unit and make it more prominent? Who knows? But until then, it's important that you really double down on AEO, GEO, think of it like organic. Make sure you have presence in that initial response, whether that's being mentioned, whether that's being cited. I think if you just try and crowbar advertising into a response where you're not visible, that's wasted media spend.
Yeah, it's a really interesting view that. And there's a couple of things, I guess, also as a heavy, Claude user, also starting to think, when is advertising going to work for me? But I think the proposition here, right, is that free to use service for the mass market. Ads are going to be the way that continues to be free, and it's still good value that you're going to get out of the platform by having that free service. In the same way, you would say the same thing about the ability to Google for free and the ability to use social for free as well. And there's that statement or saying, isn't there, that if you're not paying for the product or service, then you are the product or service. Essentially your data is the product or service that's being sold. So I think as long as people realize that, understand that, and accept that, then that should work fine. And then in terms of the placements, the ad placements, then I guess the only time they would start to move them into different places would be to improve performance, right? And they'll probably be doing this dance between, we want to be trusted with our answers, but we also want to make sure the ads work properly. And so they'll be trying to find the fine line between those two things. And then really interesting point on the organic versus paid bit as well, because I think when you think of Google, because that inventory at the top is so easy to buy and so prominent, then I do think that for a lot of brands, actually SEO just got deprioritized over the last few years, because even if you did loads of really good work on SEO, actually you're just going to get nudged out of the way by all the brands, by all of the adverts that get pumped on top. You don't have the opportunity to do this on ChatGPT. It's certainly the way the ads are going to come out in the formats that we've talked about. Organic does play a really important role all of the time, even when the ads are being shown. I know earlier I was saying, well, there's probably a play which is trying to figure out when you're there organically, you don't need the ad. But there's also an argument for, if the ads are further down anyway, you might be blocking out a competitor and or reinforcing or sharing something about your brand that doesn't get surfaced in the answer. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this evolves and what are going to be the best practices. But I'm with you, Chris. I think right now, focusing on the organic stuff, making sure you're really strong organically, can only help when the ads come through, right?
For sure. It's going to be an interesting one as it plays out. I think SEO is super important still, making sure that obviously what you're doing on site and improving your citations, your mention rates, your share of model, your technical health of the site, the existing content, improve visibility, and then supplement it with advertising. I think you'll be in a good spot.
Totally. And I think a really important point on that SEO topic, I've heard it talked about quite a few times. I mean, you definitely don't want to blow up your SEO strategy, or don't do the SEO basics, because they are basically part of the GEO, AEO strategy, right? To have all of that stuff squared away. The funny thing is that SEO work might become less important for Google search visibility, but it will retain its importance for AEO and GEO and AI search visibility. Definitely keep doing all of the SEO fundamentals, even if they might not be the thing that you think is helping you drive traffic, because your organic visibility, your organic traffic might be declining. It's still having a massively positive impact on your AI search visibility.
I saw a good analogy was like in 2026, SEO gets you to the final of the game. AEO, GEO helps you win the game.
Yeah,
so it's starting to be seen as like a supplementary support item to AI search optimization. So I know people in the SEO community probably don't like that analogy, but it seems to land pretty well from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and also means that you still absolutely have to do it, and it's basically a basic building block, isn't it? Right, so you can't ignore it. So yeah, that really resonates for me.
Awesome. So yeah, closing out this episode, thanks very much for listening. Obviously, we've gone a little bit deeper on ChatGPT ads this week. So looking ahead, what to watch going forward. I think we've talked a lot about the different pricing models that OpenAI are potentially bringing in. We've seen this in the code base, transitioning from CPM to CPC. Expect more pricing models to be introduced. The attribution infrastructure. So currently very limited on the measurement capabilities and the measurement KPIs available. Who knows what that might look like? But again, expect more measurement capabilities for marketers and agencies to really unlock the value of OpenAI ads. And then international rollout. So we are now live in the US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are coming, but expect this to fully launch across Europe very soon. So this is going to be a core part of your media spend going forward, and it's right in the heart of where the consumer lives. So as we get more developments, we'll let you know, and we'll cover it in the agent economy going forward. Thanks for listening, and look forward to seeing you at the next episode.
Thanks, Chris.